Within newer gen anime, there are these forces that no one dares to mess with. Satoru Gojo, a god from the jump of his existence. Makima, a devil under the facade of a god. And Wonder of You, unfortunate and misery incarnate upon the world. If these forces of nature were to come at each other, who would stand above the heavens as the supreme force? The strongest sorcerer, Gojo, has some of the best scaling within his verse, due to him being the strongest. He's able to utterly destroy Jogo, who within inside his domain can construct large mountain structures. With the amount of energy and mass he is using to produce said structure, this construction comes up to around island level, or just on the cusp of it. This can be consistent as fellow disaster curses Dagon can create a luxurious island while in his domain, with Jogo being on a completely different league in comparison to Dagon. With Gojo instantly overpowering his domain with his own domain, he would easily then scale to these island levels of power casually. And for those who say they're just using all their curse energy for a mega ultra super attack and they don't indefinitely scale to it, Gojo is able to spam 5 domains while running high maintenance jujutsu at the same time while fighting Sukuna, and it's just fine, meaning he would scale to this level of power quite easily. And when it comes about the higher ends, we have to talk about 20 Finger Maguna, as he's able to fight him equally, and with Kenjaku conceding to just a 15 Finger Maguna being superior to him, as if for not his intervention he would have been killed by Gojo instantly, with said Kenjaku being able to tank Yuki's black hole, which is stated would have destroyed the world bare minimally if not for the suppression of Tengen and Yuki's will. And to quickly address the ways Kenjaku scales to, he's not only second in barrier techniques to Tengen, so they are relative if not equal in that aspect. He not only tanked the black hole for a bit, but he also used this anti-gravity technique for the rest of the way, which people try to use this as a debunk for him scaling to it, but you must realize that he had to produce an equal if not greater amount of cursed energy to make the anti-gravity combat the black hole's gravity. Think about if you would throw matter and antimatter at each other, the one with the more potent or the one with the most would win out. In contrast, if you throw an equal amount of said, they would just neutralize it. With the said upscaling to Gojo, Gojo would overall scale to this, and his overall attack potency is anywhere between island level to even planetary. Now to be quick on the infamous Mach 3 speed cap, while I do believe like 99% of the verse does scale beneath this isn't true for the upper echelon of power when this is very implicative. As Neo was just a grade 1 sorcerer, even after his vengeful amp he was ultimately speed blitzed and one shot by Maki, who at this time was fully awakened and then became equal to Toji, who was reaching or on these special grade tiers. And with that minor hiccup out of the way, where do special grades scale? We all know of the infamous feat of Hikari dodging Kashima's lightning bolt point blank range. This is consistent as with inside the same fight, the lightning was directly put inside his head and his reactionary movement was able to flush it out before it could take its action, showing that even Hikari has the reaction speed of a lightning timer. With it being stated and implied by both Gojo and Kenjaku that Maki, Hikari, and Yuta are all being relative to one another, with the extra pages of volume 24 showing that Maki is able to react and block Sukuna amped lightning from Niue, as well as in the anime of Jujutsu Kaisen showing essentially a mindless Toji being able to turn his head in relative to Niue's lightning as well to look at it, all showing that this is consistent that these higher ups are lightning timers. And with the actual calculation of Hikari's feet being placed upwards of Mach 4760, or massively hypersonic plus, with just a 15 Finger Maguna scaling to Maki, who would be relative to this Hikari, thus this feat. And as we've already established, Gojo scales to a 20 Finger Maguna. Now I like to say the difference between the Magunas is at least a 5 times difference, as this is very generous, as just one of Sukuna's fingers able to bring Yuji, who should be at least a grade 2 sorcerer, as he seemingly is able to fight on par if not superior to Megumi, who was confirmed to be a grade 2 sorcerer, to that of a special grade with Sukuna's control. Mind you, the difference between second and special is that of a shotgun and a cluster bombing, and essentially hundreds of thousands if not millions of times of a difference, so just saying it's a 5 times difference is extremely conservative. With that in play, Sukuna and Gojo by proxy would be Mach 23,800 or sub-relativistic, and Gojo was only getting faster throughout the fight. With the higher ends come from Sukuna's scuffle with Kashimo, as Kashimo was making and throwing attacks that were stated to be electromagnetic waves, Sukuna seemingly reacted and dodging it. If we go with this line of scaling, then this speed's been calced upwards of 2.57 times the speed of light. And for those who say electromagnetic waves are slower in atmosphere, well, yes, you are right, by like 0.1%. With the calculations even including this less than 1% difference, it still comes up to faster than light. Now, Sukuna was legit crippled when he did this with no power at all, so just assuming he's at least 2 times greater when he's fully refreshed in fighting, he would be 5.14 times the speed of light as Gojo by proxy. And as mentioned, Gojo was only getting faster, so just assuming, again, just 2 times, Gojo would be 10.28 times the speed of light, depending if you think Sukuna being crippled matters to the scale or not. Now, Gojo's abilities have been deemed too complicated to go over in a short video, which is just wrong, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to be going over the Limitless chronological in order to its list of abilities. The first being the neutral form of Limitless, that being Infinity, which as Gojo describes it, he's putting infinity between him and his opponent. So is this true? Yes and no. The infinity is confirmed to be that of Zeno's paradox, the Achilles and the tortoise, which essentially says when you're trying to get to point B from A, you must cross the halfway point, and then you must cross the next halfway point, and so on and so on. Essentially, you have to do that infinitely, and you will never reach point B. However, this paradox is innately flawed, as you can disprove it by quite literally just walking to your bed from your kitchen or something, and it just completely goes against the speed equation in general. However, Gojo brings this concept into reality. It's even stated in verse to apply the same as he creates a divergence of distance infinitely slowing you down, with it again being confirmed in the chapter breakdown that he does so, but he exaggerates almost every decibel between distance. And he does this automatically due to him aligning himself with the target as he wants with his brain based off many factors. So while he's not technically creating an infinite space, he's essentially slowing you down or the space between you infinitely. Now with the hardest one out of the way, time to go over the rest, and that should be simple. With Limitless Blue, he creates a magnetic point that he throws out. With Red, he acts as the opposite or repulsion with double his output. With Hollow Purple, he combined both red and blue, so I argue it's both repulsing and attracting force at the same time, which is why it's essentially destroying everything in its path. Something interesting to point out is that Gojo manipulates these attacks or curse energy on the atomic level, so these count as potentially even durability negation on the atomic level, as well as he manipulates space-time. And with the final extent of Limitless, that being Immeasurable Void, which is not only his domain expansion, so when caught in it, the attack that is linked to his guaranteed hit will always hit. And with said guaranteed hit, he can force your actions upon you infinitely as information. As is explained in the chapter breakdowns, if you think about Apple, Gorilla, and Trumpet, you first need to think about the letter A an infinite amount of times, and then P, and eventually go over the whole letter, and then everything associated with Apple, before even moving on to Gorilla. He's essentially putting infinites upon infinites of information inside your head. And with his lesser abilities, he has Reverse Curse Technique, which allows him to heal. It's even implied that with said thing can heal the soul, so maybe a type or tier of low godly regeneration. Has the potential to land a Black Flash, which amplifies your attack by 2.5 to the power. And lastly, his Six Eyes, which not only use essentially no curse energy for the attacks, but can decipher anyone's ability or technique just by looking them and their ability in action. Makima's attack potency is weird, as regularly she can throw hands and damage Chainsaw Man in his regular state. Denji, who in the beginning of the series can take the sonic screams of the Bat Devil, which completely obliterate the mountain behind him, which is calced upwards a large billion level. Even Reize with her bombs can create billion level explosions, making this level of power very consistent. With her durability just scaling below this, as she's completely getting obliterated by said Denji, which this is consistent as she's a person who solely relies on regeneration to over time overpower her opponent. Now this is where the weird part takes in action, as her attacks themselves scale way above this normally. By attacks I'm referring to the Bang, as she can clash and damage Suppress Darkness Devil, which he and all other primordial devils are stated to be so strong they are just transcendent in comparison to the existence of all other devils at the time, except this Chad. This would include the Gun Devil, as he can even perform multi-city block to town level attacks or potency just by moving, even obliterate portions of cities in seconds, which are a minimum of small city level. And most of these feats were done when he was at 20% of his power, so he would even be at least 5 times that normally. With the rest of the scaling comes from her clash from and damaging the Darkness Devil, which all primordial devils are implied to be on a similar level, as if none of them ever died, meaning none of them's ever been able to take on and defeat the other one, and just them in general being transcendent, just there's nothing that applies, there's one superior over the other, at least currently. meaning she would scale to the falling devil's feet, in which due to her existence she was messing with gravity on such a scale it was going to affect the entire planet, meaning she could drastically affect the GBE of Earth with just her existence. This on a low end is calculated on multi-continental, but if you say she's drastically affecting or overpowering the Earth's GBE, she can potentially be considered planetary, as she is essentially adding or counteracting the Earth's GBE by adding her own influx of gravity. And mind you, this was all due to her existence. Overall, making Makima scale anywhere between city level to even planetary attack potency. As we've already established, Makima can equally clash with a suppressed Darkness Devil even in speed, and with the establishment of the Darkness Devil being above everyone at the time within the verse, meaning they would scale above all the feats currently. With feats such as the Angel Devil being able to block a bullet from a thug, with it being calced at Mach 2.98. Funny how this one feat speed blitzes over 90% of Jujutsu Kaisen, just something to think about. To even being above Quan Chi when she's able to do a feat where she can cross an insane distance while perception blitzing many people. I've seen said feat calc to Mach 7.2 to even 20.8, if not way higher. But the real impressive feat comes from the Gun Devil, in which you can throw attacks or bullets moving at 500 kilometers in 1 second. This feat is Mach 1457.7, which is massively hypersonic plus, with the Gun Devil being 5 times that normally, making he and Makima by proxy Mach 7288.5. Makima as the Control Devil has her main ability, it's kind of in her name, as she can control anyone she sees lesser than herself, and if she doesn't initially see you as lesser, she has to beat you in a fight to feel that she's equal or superior. Shown with Quan Chi as she was about to fight her, but due to her surrendering she technically lost her, thus she was able to control her. And due to this ability, she made a contract with the Prime Minister of Japan. She essentially has extra lives in the sense of she exchanges her lives with the fatal blows as she swaps with Japanese citizens, in which said Japanese citizens will experience the death and appropriate illness or accidents. And just for something to note, at this time, Japan had a population of 126 million, so she has a lot of extra lives to work with. And she has a type of force manipulation with Bang, which is way faster and stronger than her normally, as we've already covered. And due to her control ability, she has control over certain people, thus giving her many abilities such as the Punishment Devil, the Snake Devil, the Future Devil, and the Angel Devil, with the Punishment Devil just essentially jumping you and dishing punishment, the Future Devil giving you a type of precog, even Makima might have a higher level of this, and lastly the Angel Devil's abilities. By just touching someone, she absorbs their life force, and she can create weapons out of them, with them having unique attributes such as being able to affect ghosts, so a type of non-physical interaction, if not some type of Durandeg on the level of the soul. Wonder of You, quite literally the most terrifying stand in all of JoJo. Imagine you're going to the doctor's, the store, or even a walk in your park, and your eye catches an old man. After that, a series of unfortunate events take place upon you. That is Calamity, and Wonder of You is that Calamity. Not manipulating it, he is Calamity itself, as is repeatedly stated many times that he is just Calamity incarnate. The flow of Calamity is the flow of reason, which in turn is logic, all of which are tied together innately. Meaning Wonder of You isn't just a stand, he is logic, the logic of the JoJo multiverse, which spans over an infinite amount of universes. It has been stated that nothing inverse, even include stands, can go beyond said logic. Hence, nothing can go beyond Wonder of You, and Wonder of You is beyond everything and everyone and every character at the verse at the time. This would include Tusk Act 4, and Tusk Act 4 has very interesting statements inside the JoJolian guidebook. It's firstly stated in the section explaining Tusk Act 4, it stated that he transcends dimensions. And again in the battle logs in his fight with Funny Valentine Love Train, again it says that this is shown in verse as he can just casually rip open Funny Valentine's dimensional wall, making Tusk Act 4 dimensionally transcendent of his verse, hence making Wonder of You 4th dimensional or universal plus. With speed being even easier task to go over, as with the pre-established superiority to almost the entirety of the verse, he would be beyond the several light speed and faster than light speed stands sprinkled throughout the ages. But more importantly, he would be beyond the priests, Pucci, and with Made in Heaven being stated in his stand stats to have infinite speed quite blatantly, and people will try to combat this by saying this is in reference to his ability to accelerate time to infinity. However, inside said chart, they make a delineation between his speed and his ability. Not to mention, nowhere in the manga is ever stated or implied his abilities what makes him go fast, or rather, just it's his ability to accelerate time to infinity to restart the universe. And for the other quote people try to use is that they say that the logic doesn't apply to the old universe for whatever reason. However, inside volume 27, Araki makes a note, in which he says, and I quote, "This is the type of question that is not something I can avoid. Who is the strongest villain? What is strength? And what is the peak fortune? I've decided that the strongest and most terrifying adversary one can face is called Calamity. Essentially, Wonder View is just factually the strongest enemy stand to date, making him over Made in Heaven and Wonder View having infinite." With Wonder View being Calamity, which is reason, which is also logic in return. And with this, he can control those aspects, meaning he simultaneously has reason, logic, and law manipulation. But his signature ability of Calamity allows anyone who pursues him, no matter how trivial, to die, and if you make direct visual contact with him, you will die immediately. These deaths can range from random occurrences or events that conspire regardless of how ridiculous, to even just dying just because. With it being impossible to even react with him if you're within said logic, in the first place making him essentially untouchable. Even if you somehow kill him, he will live on as long as logic itself. With the Gojo multiverse being infinite, you need to kill him or destroy logic infinitely or destroy it an infinite amount of times to truly kill him. And with the fact that he's potentially omnipresent due to him being logic and reason, which exists everywhere, with it being consistent as he just pops up anywhere when you're just talking about him, even if he didn't exist in the first place. After going all three of the contestants, we see it's rather irrelevant who you think wins between Gojo and Makima, as not only are they completely outstatted by Wonder View, but also outhacked as well. Quite literally, the second they draw attention to him, they are dead. Ironically, the 120 million lives Makima has will be snuffed out in an instant by Calamity. And legitimately, I see all of Gojo's techniques being reversed and thrown right back at him. Overall, Wonder View is just too much for them, and he has every way to kill them along with their verse, honestly. Making Wonder View the victor of this fight, and thank you again, George, for the donation. It really truly means a lot. And that'll be all for this one. Hopefully you guys like this first video of the new year, and see y'all in the next one.